Today, I am reviewing the JBL Bar 800-5.1.2 channel soundbar. If at any time you'd like to explore this product for yourself and grab it at a great price, be sure to check the links below the video. If you've been looking for a way to get true cinema-grade audio in your living room without filling your space with a dozen wires and a dedicated receiver, you have probably come across the JBL Bar 800. I have been living with this system for a few weeks now, putting it through everything from late-night gaming sessions to high-action movie marathons, and I have some very specific thoughts on whether or not it actually lives up to the hype. You can check the links below the video if you want to see the current pricing or explore the technical specifications yourself, but today I want to talk about how this thing actually performs in a real home environment. Let's start with the most impressive part of the package, which is the detachable surround speakers. This is the main reason you are buying this specific soundbar. Unlike other systems that require you to run speaker wire across your living room floor or deal with a bulky secondary power brick for each satellite, these speakers are battery-powered and dock directly onto the ends of the main bar. When they are docked, they charge up automatically. When you want a movie night, you just pop them off and set them behind your couch. The convenience factor here is a 10 out of 10. I was genuinely skeptical about the battery life, but in my testing, I easily got through a double feature without needing to dock them. The connection is rock solid too. I never experienced a single dropout or sync issue, which is usually the biggest pain point with wireless rear speakers. The sound profile of the JBL Bar 800 is distinctly JBL. It is punchy, aggressive, and fun. If you like a soundstage that makes you feel like you are in the middle of a blockbuster film, you're going to love this. The 10-inch subwoofer is a beast. It is not just loud, it is physically impactful. When there is an explosion on screen, you feel it in your chest, which is exactly what you want from a system at this price point. However, this level of bass does come with a caveat. If you live in an apartment with thin walls or shared floors, you're going to need to adjust the bass settings in the JBL One app. It is very easy to shake the whole building with this subwoofer, and there is no subtlety to it. It is designed for raw power, not for delicate, audiophile-grade precision. Speaking of the JBL One app, it is a necessary evil. You will need it to calibrate the system to your room. The calibration process is straightforward. It sends out a few test tones and adjusts the output based on your walls and furniture. Please do not skip this step. The soundbar sounds significantly better once it has actually mapped your room. Without calibration, the Dolby Atmos effects felt a bit muddy and disconnected, but once the calibration finished, the up-firing drivers actually started to make sense. You get that sense of height that Atmos promises, especially with rain scenes or aircraft flying overhead. It is not quite as convincing as a dedicated ceiling-mounted speaker setup, but for a soundbar, it is surprisingly effective. Now, let's talk about the dialogue. JBL uses something they call PureVoice technology, and I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, it does a great job of isolating voices and pushing them forward, so you aren't constantly reaching for the remote to turn the volume up during quiet scenes and down during action sequences. If you're someone who struggles to hear what characters are saying in modern movies, this feature is a genuine lifesaver. On the other hand, it can sometimes make the dialogue sound a bit processed or thin. It lacks the natural warmth that you might get from a high-end center channel speaker. It is a trade-off between clarity and tone, and for most people, I think the clarity win is worth the slight loss in naturalness. When it comes to connectivity, the inclusion of HDMI eARC is non-negotiable in this day and age, and JBL has implemented it well here. The 4K Dolby Vision pass-through worked flawlessly with my gaming console. I didn't notice any input lag, which is a big concern for gamers, and the handshake between the TV and the soundbar was consistent every time I turned the system on. The Wi-Fi integration is also a big plus. Being able to stream directly via AirPlay or Chromecast means you aren't tethered to your phone's Bluetooth connection, which is better for sound quality and battery life on your mobile device. If you want to check the current deals on this unit, remember to look at the links below the video, but keep in mind that the software experience is highly dependent on your home network stability. If your Wi-Fi is spotty, the smart features of the bar will be spotty too. Let's get into the weaknesses, because no product is perfect. First, the finish. The black plastic and the fabric grills look great when they are brand new, but they are absolute dust magnets. If you have pets or a dusty room, you're going to be cleaning this thing constantly. Second, the battery-powered rears are a genius idea, but they are also a potential long-term disappointment. All lithium-ion batteries degrade over time. 5 years from now, those rear speakers might not hold a charge for more than an hour. While you can technically keep them docked and powered while you use them, that kind of defeats the purpose of the wireless design. It is a trade-off between current convenience and future-proofing. Also, the user interface on the soundbar itself is very limited. It is just a small LED display hidden behind the grill that gives you basic text feedback. It is perfectly functional, but it feels a bit dated compared to the slick apps we are used to today. You're going to be doing almost all of your fine-tuning through the app, so if you're the type of person who hates having to pull out their smartphone just to change an EQ setting or switch an input, you might find the process a little tedious. I wish there were more physical buttons or a more robust remote control, but the provided remote is fairly basic, covering only the essentials. Another thing to consider is the size of the main bar. It is quite wide. If you have a smaller TV like a 43 or 50-inch screen, this soundbar is going to look a bit disproportionate underneath it. It is really designed for 55-inch TVs and larger. If your TV stand is narrow, you might have an issue with the footprint, especially since the detachable speakers add to the total width when they are docked. You really need to measure your space before you commit to this purchase. For those who listen to a lot of music, the JBL Bar 800 is decent, but it is not a replacement for a dedicated stereo system. It handles pop, hip-hop, and electronic music very well because of that powerful sub, but acoustic tracks and jazz can sound a bit compressed. The soundstage is wide, which is great for immersion, but it lacks that precise imaging where you can point to exactly where each instrument is located. If you're an audiophile, you're probably not looking at a soundbar anyway, but it is worth noting that this is definitely an entertainment-first system rather than a music-first system. Is it worth the money? That is the big question. When you look at the price, you are paying for the convenience of the detachable rears and the simplicity of the setup. If you're willing to spend a whole weekend running wires through your attic or baseboards and buying a separate receiver and speakers, you could get better sound for the same amount of money. But most people do not have the time, the budget, or the desire to do that. This system is for the person who wants a cinema experience on a Tuesday night without the technical headache. It is a plug-and-play solution that succeeds because it removes the barriers to entry for high-quality surround sound. One thing that really frustrated me during my testing was the auto standby feature. It is a bit aggressive. If you pause a movie to go get a snack, and you are gone for a few minutes, the bar sometimes goes to sleep, and it takes a couple of seconds to wake back up when you hit play again. It is a minor annoyance, but it happens enough that you notice it. I checked the settings in the app, and while there are some power-saving options, you cannot completely disable the auto standby, which seems like a weird oversight for a product at this tier. I also want to mention the voice assistant integration. It works, but it is not a replacement for a dedicated smart speaker. I found that I had to speak a bit louder than usual for the bar to register commands, especially when the volume was turned up. If you already have an Alexa or Google Home device in the room, you are better off just using that to control the playback rather than relying on the soundbar's integrated microphone array. Despite these minor gripes, the core experience is genuinely impressive. The transition from standard stereo TV audio to the 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos experience provided by this JBL system is night and day. You hear things in movies that you didn't even know were in the sound mix. The way the sound wraps around your head when you place those rear speakers correctly is the highlight of the entire package. It changes how you watch movies. You stop watching the screen, and you start living inside the movie. That is the promise of Atmos, and the JBL Bar 800 delivers on it more consistently than almost any other soundbar I have tested in this size class. If you are a casual viewer who watches mostly news or talk shows, this is overkill. You don't need a 10-inch subwoofer to hear a weather report. But if you're a movie lover, a gamer who plays titles with heavy sound design, or someone who loves to host movie nights, this is a very strong contender. Just make sure you have the space for the subwoofer because it is a significant piece of hardware. I ended up placing mine in the corner of the room to help reinforce the bass, and it made a noticeable difference in how deep the low end felt. I would suggest that before you buy, you look closely at the dimensions of your room. If you have a massive, open-concept living room with high ceilings, this bar might struggle to fill the space. It is designed for standard living rooms and dedicated media spaces. In a cavernous room, the surround effects might get lost, and you might find yourself wishing for more power. But for 90% of homes, this is more than enough volume and presence. If you are worried about the setup, don't be. The instructions are very clear, and the app walks you through the Wi-Fi connection and the calibration step by step. It is a very polished experience. I didn't have to look up a single YouTube tutorial to get everything running, which is a rare thing for tech products these days. The build quality feels premium. It has a nice weight to it, and the materials feel durable enough to last for years. In summary, the JBL Bar 800 is a fantastic piece of engineering that prioritizes convenience without sacrificing too much performance. It has some quirks with its software, the finish shows dust easily, and it is definitely not for the audiophile looking for a pure 2-channel experience. However, for the average consumer who wants to upgrade their home theater without the clutter of a traditional system, it is an excellent choice. The detachable rears are the star of the show, and they make the system feel much more expensive than it actually is. If you want to see if this fits your budget or to compare it with other options, remember you can check the links below the video. It is a solid, reliable, and powerful soundbar that I am personally very happy with, and I think most people who pick one up will feel the same way once they hear that first explosion in true Dolby Atmos. Just be prepared to dust it off every once in a while, and maybe warn your neighbors before you crank the volume up for a big action movie. It is a great system, and it definitely earns its place in my living room.